Okay. We'll do a short prayer and then we'll begin. Makiru and Bam. Makiru and Bam. Makiru and Bam. Makiru and Bam. Attack. Okay, well, Jack, greetings. So, uh, recall I wasn't expecting to do the full panel, but after looking at it today, I was thinking I might as well do the full panel after working on the lesson for tonight. So you know that this is Goddess Heteru, and she is a mistress of Amentet. And Amentet is the West, the netherworld. And actually, in the tomb of Tutankhamun, Heteru is manifesting as Amentet. She doesn't wear the same crown as she's wearing here. She wears the symbol of the Amentet of the West. But her signature says that she is Makiru. So she is the mistress of Amentet, and she manifests as Amentet, the goddess Amentet. And in a highly mystical way, from a highly refined philosophical perspective, and a profound metaphysical occurrence. She herself is the Amentet. She herself is the West. And we know that this process of the goddess, which is given eternity and renewals, and the flow of life as we went through, the powerful flow of life forever in eternity, is being presided over Herubeta. And so we will treat these inscriptions next time, and we will treat this inscription this evening. But if you can see, there is when you go in here, there is a glass case that was built around the scene. So all of this is modern to try to protect the scene from tourists when they come in, and they add lighting, which all of the lighting in the devices are artificial lighting. You know, modern electricity. And since they do that, if you take photographs, you don't get the full scene sometimes, because the frame that holds the glass sometimes is in the way. So you have to maneuver to try to get, good photographs to get the whole scene. See how the goddess has embraced the hand of the initiate, of the royal. And see how they're exchanging life force, exchanging divine energy, exchanging subtle force. And she's projecting that into him. He's receiving. You see that this is her right arm and her right hand, emotivity. And this is his left arm and hand, receptivity. So she's projecting into him. So he's receiving and utilizing. And the process, the arbiter of the process is Beret. Meaning Beret is sanctioning and providing over the royal being able to receive the spiritual gift and blessing from the goddess. And also the color, you see he is reddish brown and she is yellowish. And these colors are not actual, they're symbolic. And these colors are mystically related. So it's showing a synthesis between the two in a subtle, abstract way, and how he achieved this synthesis with the goddess is by his positive spiritual movement and arising to a higher state. And you can see his hair is blue, and his beard is blue, and this symbolized unobjectified consciousness. So it's an expression of a higher realization of a very subtle nature, if you can call it that. We're just using words to explain a reality that is beyond concepts. So he's become attuned with the goddess and what she's projecting into him. So these gifts just don't happen because you want them to, or you chant her name a couple times, or you just pray to her once or twice. You have to do something with the ego to receive these higher boons. And that which you do is sublimate the ego. So to get to this line of scripture, what we have to do is take it at a different angle. And so we'll go through it and discuss it. So we'll come out of this picture and pull up the other one. And see, so we have to take it from an angle in the same place. And this is This is Goddess Neverhead, and she's doing something very special that I don't think we'll touch on this area in this class, but because in the Amdua class we're going to go into detail with what Goddess Neverhead is doing. And since you all are in the Amdua class, no need to repeat. Although repetition is good. So here's the line of text. The background is yellow, and you can see that the beautiful color still remains. You can see it's still glorious and beautiful. So let's go back to the other picture for just a moment to point out something. You see how this line of text is on a yellow background. And also the text in the cartouche is on a yellow background. And this implement is the Kemetic name for it is Shannon. So these are Shannon. And the French term is cartouche. And so you can see that the text is written on a yellowish background. If you pull over, you can see it here as well. And on the other side, remember we went through this text as well. And it's the same color regardless. So this yellowish golden color is symbolic of the unfabricated absolute self. And the hieroglyphs are a manifestation from that underlying spiritual reality that is unfabricated and beyond time. So the hieroglyphs are images that are projecting and held on the screen of absolute consciousness. So the glyphs are called tats. And tat means image. So these are images, and they have certain functionalities in time that allows the mind to go through a purification process and an expansion into the awareness of that which the hieroglyphs have emerged from. And that's why they're called Medu Neter. Medu Neter, divine words. Because they are images or projections on a screen or projections from divinity. And they are the support for the soul in the world of time and space. So they are manifesting from the spirit. You can see throughout the theme remains of the yellow, the text being projected onto the yellow. And the goddess maintains the yellowish gold color. So the texts are written on the supreme absolute self. And then you take in that text and are transformed by it. You go through the spiritual process of reclaiming one's own divine nature, meaning self-discovery. So Diwu M Pasiu Enket Nesuneb Dawi Ursa Amundra Mer Ma Sara Neb Kau Ramesses Ek An En Hiru Mesues Hiru Ayu. So given by way of due to the singing, prayers, exaltations, divine singing, the divine things, of the divine thing. So in other words, what is being given is because of the devotional exaltation. What is given is the divine thing to the royal personality. This is a royal personality. And the royal personality is a metaphor for every initiate of the temple. So it's not really talking about someone who lived a long time ago and this happened to him and could never happen to anybody else. And this occurred there. So it cuts out the historicity and brings it into a mystical context. One is related to the soul of every human being who takes on the path of the redemption of the soul by the spiritual narrative that has been laid out for the redemption of the soul. Is you have been dismembered, as it were. Your consciousness has been disintegrated because of ignorance, lack of knowledge of self. And this occurred because of becoming entangled in the world process through the misapprehension of reality and the notion of individuality. And this first part of the line is pointing towards a This term Hesed means divine singing, exaltation, divine chanting. This is pointing towards a devotional worship process that, so basically opening your heart to the divine and learning how to love God, how to love the divine. If there's true love of the divine, there can be no hate of anyone or anything. People who say that they love God or they have a relationship with God, and then hate people for the color of their skin or where they were born, or because they come into your country as immigrants, or whatever the reason might be, that they don't have the true love of God has not opened in their heart. Because you cannot love the divine and hate anything, because everything is divine. And God is love, and love is God. Divine love and the divine are, you can't say inseparable, they're one and the same. So you can't be a tyrant and be a true, open-hearted being toward the divine at the same time. The people who are like that, they don't understand religion. They don't understand what religion is supposed to do. They still have an exoteric, dualistic notion of religion. And if your notion of religion is dualistic, then there is room within the ego for hatred. So if you believe God created the earth at some point in time in history, and now is removed from nature and is looking down on you, there's ample space for hatred to develop in the mind, in the personality, in the actions of the person. But if there's true love of divinity, then nothing can be hated, nothing can be looked down upon, nothing can be reviled, nothing can be repulsive. It's all a manifestation of divinity. So even the prostitute is looked down upon as a manifestation of the divine. You're not going to get involved with her, you're not going to lay down with her. But you realize that that entity, that person, is operating through a deluded mind. There's nothing inherently evil or wicked about the person. Is that they have a messed up mind and they've had a messed up life, and they're traumatized people. So that's why they're acting that way. It's a manifestation of divinity nonetheless, just like dog poop is a manifestation. God is there too in the dog poop. So the problem is that people don't understand what divinity is, and they think, and they run around thinking that they know when they don't really know. Because knowing the divine is not intellectual. It's more feeling and experiential. And that's why you need Hesi. That's why you need chanting. That's why you need exaltation. That's why you need surrender. So you yourselves as spiritual aspirants can weed out any little bit piece of ignorance that's going to cause you to develop any notion of separation or any tendril of hatred within you. All of that has to be completely rooted out. And the way how you root it out is truly loving the divine. And if there's true love of the divine, the hatred cannot live there. It's like when you turn on a light in the darkness. The darkness cannot exist where there's light. Similarly, hatred cannot exist where there is love of God. And where there is love of God, there is realization of God. Using the term God, but we're not using the term God from a dualistic perspective and an individuated being perspective. We're looking we're using that term in relation to the absolute supreme being, unfabricated by the mind, which is one's own inner reality, if one would purify and realize. So the Hesi brings the divine thing to the royal. And that, and you know, the thing of divinity, the substance, the substance of divinity. Nesu, Nebtawi, the ruler is the Lord of the two lands. So the ruler of the higher and lower self. So the word Tawi, one strip with the three lines is Ta. It means earth. You have two lines with the three dots. It's pronounced Tawi, the two lands. And what it's relating to from a exoteric perspective, it's relating to the south and the north, the upper and the lower. But since this text is, you see how it started out with the giving by way of the Hesi, the divine things from the divine chanting, then that nullifies the Tawi as a mundane view. The view that it is holding, based upon what was written before, is the subtle view, which is that you are a ruler of the two polarities within yourself. You're the ruler of your higher nature. So you're not controlled by passion, desire, greed, anger, envy, hatred, jealousy. Those have been weeded out, and so you cannot be ruled by that. So you rule the lower. You control the lower. And also the higher. And what it means to rule the higher is that you exist in the higher. So You rule there by existing there as your true divine self-realization. So you have dominion over the two lands. And since you have dominion over the two lands, then you are the royal ruler. So you're not controlled by your lower nature. You're not acting as a nothing more than an animal, seeking food, seeking pleasure, uh, and and peeing and defecating, and that's all there is to your existence. You're way beyond that. You're way above that. So you're not controlled by desire. You eat because it's a function. You have to take in nutrition for your body. You have to wash your body. You have to use the restroom. But those are due to the functions of the body, not due to your animal nature. You've sublimated the animal nature, and you've risen above it, so you're not controlled by it. And your animal nature, your passions, what your desires, your proclivities, your unwholesome habits, is all your lower nature powers. And those powers are not those powers are not revelatory of the spirit. They keep you in the realm of the earth, experiencing and exploring space and time. And you can do that powerfully. You can be like an astronaut. You can be like a great athlete, or you can be a great economist, or a Genghis Khan, or Napoleon, whatever, or a Shaka Zulu, or a great warrior, Alexander, or a great athlete, or whatever. But you're still controlled. That's the problem. So your power is being projected into the world, and therefore you don't realize the higher power within, which is your spirit, consciousness. And therefore you're controlled by the lower. And the reason why you're controlled by the lower is because you are essentially the soul. But since you're so tied to the mind, in its delusion, you're controlled by those delusions, and you don't realize that you are essentially spirit. But when the self-realization process takes hold, you start to gain control of the lower powers, and you actually vanquish them, because you don't need them, because you are in a higher spirit realization. And you let the body function the way it functions, but the energies, the lower energies, you vanquish those, because you don't need them anymore, because you're not exploring the world for your satisfaction anymore. You've discovered what the world is. And essentially, you've discovered that the world is illusion. So you stop chasing after illusions. You realize the absolute reality. And if you stop chasing after illusions, there is more peace, there is more relaxation, there's more deeper and deeper inner awareness of self. So you vanquish the lower nature. And that is being a true warrior. As being a true champion. Now, if you look in this, the color schemes here are very sophisticated. You see, all of the texts are written on the yellow. And the Shenu, which holds the name, is projected on the yellow. But the name is projected on the white within the Shenu. So it's talking about a circumscribed personality. A personality that has awareness of time and space. But the name is projected on the white within the Shenu, meaning that circumscribed personality is purified. And so the Shenu is able, the Shenu is going to manifest on the screen of divinity anyway. But who is able to put their name in the Shenu? That's the key. And here the projection of the name is on the backdrop of the white, like the white linen that are used to make the garments, and the white linen that's used to wrap the mummies. And so the white is the symbol of purity. So the name is being projected on. So it means that the name is purified. So if the name is purified, it means that the personality that is attached to that name, that personality is purified. The Ursa, Amundra, Merma. So dominion in the hidden witnessing consciousness of Creator Spirit, beloved of truth, Ma. And that's the royal personality. Sa Ra, who is the son of Creator Spirit. So the one who has dominion of the hidden consciousness of Creator Spirit and beloved by truth is the same son of Ra. And having dominion in the witnessing consciousness aspect of Creator Spirit means that you are well seated in your witnessing consciousness aspect. So it means that you are in full awareness of put it to you this way, your conscious awareness of divinity is unbroken by time. So time does not impede on your awareness of yourself as spirit being. because you're fully aware of that, and your witnessing consciousness aspect is an observer of your mind that is purified, and the observer of your personality that is you know in a condition where the ego is sublimated. So you have full awareness of your inner reality as spirit. You have dominion there, dominion and power there. And since you have dominion and power, your awareness of that higher spiritual reality is unbroken. Nothing can come in and interrupt it. Nothing can come in and sever it. There's power, there's Ursa. Power, dominion. This symbol here with the long neck and the dog ears, that's Ursa. Power and dominion. And there's actually a goddess who is called Ursert, who is the female aspect of Ursa. And she appears in the Amdua text. And so what is being expressed here, though, is the power and establishment in that higher consciousness awareness of yourself as spirit, soul. They're essentially Ra and Asar the same. Sa, Ra. So you're the son of Ra. Sa is the bird, and Ra is the sun disk. So Sa, son, Ra, son of Ra. So the child of Ra, and if you're the son of something, means that you have been born from that. So you are the son of the creator spirit, which is spirit essence. Neb Kalu, Lord of all risings. And that relates to the Lord of the full unfolding, dawning of the consciousness or the conscious realization of absolute spirit being. So it's a full emerging of that higher realization of spirit awareness. And again, this is it's not intellectual, it's not a thought, it's not a feeling. It works in the feeling, but it's a direct experience that is reflected in your feelings. So you cannot think, oh, I am God, and think that that's enlightenment. It's certainly a higher thought, but it is a thought. And enlightenment is a realization that is beyond thinking, thought, cognition, mentation, psychological process. So the realization of that higher mystic reality transcends the unconscious mind. And the unconscious mind is vast. So to go beyond the unconscious is, it's no simple feat. And that is not something that is easy to do. It's not something that is easily accomplished. And it takes lots of humility, lots of surrender, and lots of opening your heart to the divine. And that's why it starts with the Hesiod. So lots of surrender. But how many people are ready to surrender? And what's holding people back from surrendering is their ego, because they're holding and clutching and trying to maintain their grasp on the world. The world has got them, the ego has got them caught in the world. And they're moving around space and time, laterally, horizontally, moving from place to place, in a mire of pain and pleasure. But what you're out for is you're out for the vertical movement. And so you have to open your heart to God. And by opening your heart to the divine, you discover the essential nature of self. And that relieves one of the sufferings of normal human existence. And that is the path to peace and the path to liberation. Liberation from the world of time, space, duality. So you're trying to be liberated. And human beings are, they're interesting beings in that they seek for pleasure that causes pain. And they essentially, human beings are trying to relieve themselves from the pain and suffering that is inherent in everyday life. But they do so, they try to relieve that pain and suffering through activities that creates more pain and suffering. And that's the fundamental ignorance. That is called Kemen. Kemen means darkness. There's no darkness like the darkness of ignorance, the Kemetic proverb says. And that's set, that's ego. So in that way, the human beings are interesting. It's quite an interesting psychology. And so human beings are essentially, have a mental disorder, all human beings. And the way to correct that is by self-discovery, or else you'll be moving around in the world trying to discover or trying to eliminate the pain and suffering inherent in everyday life through means that create pain and suffering. And it is quite a predicament, because you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know that you have to turn towards the divine to relieve your suffering, or you ignore it, you may hear the message but still ignore it. It leaves you in quite a quandary, quite a predicament. And that's why the spiritual tradition was created. That's why not everyone could go into every part of the temple, reserved for people who are serious about solving the issue of fundamental ignorance, of lack of knowledge of self. So now we're at the bottom of the line, but we're going to leave it here because what is to follow is we need some time to go through it, because these are big statements. These are not small statements that are made in the Bible. So we'll deal with this next week. Are there any questions? Yes, the subject of enlightenment is a heavy subject, because it goes against what the ego has come to know and believe and searches out. And it goes against what the mind has become habituated to. So it's a heavy subject because you're trying to break through all of that misunderstanding to arrive at a higher truth. And so it takes time. It takes lots of hesing, meaning lots of love for the divine. You have to open your heart. And, it's easy to say that, but it's something you have to do. It's something that is hard to do. You have to. And saying that something is hard to do, meaning it goes against what the ego wants. But it's actually very simple. And you have to work towards being able to really have an open heart to the divinity. And when you have an open heart to the divinity, you discover that you're really loving yourself because you're that divinity. And if you are loving yourself, you're loving the divine, then hatred is removed. And you find yourself in a way of non-judgmental, not that you don't or are incapable of articulating error, but you do so from the perspective of understanding the predicament of the other person that has made the error, or living or working in an erroneous manner. But the big key is that it's the removal of hatred and the removal of boundaries within yourself. Not only nation states have boundaries, but human beings have boundaries, have built up walls around themselves. They're not only, um, metaphorical walls of trying to keep people out. And what people do is that they try to keep other people out of themselves for whatever reason, whatever prejudice, whatever racism, whatever is there that's preventing it. It's the wall. And that wall is your ego. And that ego can be so encrusted and so vicious that it'll have you walling out the divine. And you think you're loving God, but what you're really doing is that you're loving a figment of your imagination of God. You're not really truly loving the divine. And there's lots of people like that. Like the boarding schools in Canada with nuns and priests, and even in the United States, of abusing children. And they think, and they're the nuns and the priests, but yet they're abusing children. And that's a symbol. Those erroneous acts, those are symbols of lack of knowledge of truth. And the problem is when people lack truth, they can act in vicious ways because that's the ego. That's the domain of the ego, viciousness. And those are the people that are controlled by the lower nature. They have no real power. They have a figment of power, which is the horizontal power controlling the world or other people or whatever. But they die and they are reborn again. They reincarnate. They're incapable of doing what is told in the temple of Asar, of not reincarnating again, turning it off. And they come back into the world of pain, misery, suffering, being uncomfortable. Truth causes deluded people to be uncomfortable. And it's okay to acknowledge that you're uncomfortable. But if there's enough clarity, if there's enough inner strength to work through the uncomfortability, then you're working with a person there. You're working with a viable personality. But if the truth makes you so uncomfortable that you can't hear it or don't want to hear it or don't want other people to hear it, then you're looking at a real degraded personality. Don't talk about slavery. Don't want to hear. We don't want those books in schools. So forth and so on. It's very degrading. Okay, so that'll be for this evening. My voice is getting better. So we'll do a closing check. And then that'll be it for this evening. And we'll pick up here. But you know what I mean. Shutting things out because of the fear of truth. That leads to delusion and more unrighteousness. And you don't want to be that way. You want to have an open heart to divinity. Makeru, Wemba, Makeru, Wemba, Makeru, Wemba, Makiru, Memba, Nebajer, Katet. Do everyone told me to again. Katet.
Do